An ambulance is a medically equipped vehicle which transports patients to treatment facilities, such as hospitals. Typically, out-of-hospital medical care is provided to the patient. Ambulances are used to respond to medical emergencies by emergency medical services. For this purpose, they are generally equipped with flashing warning lights and sirens. They can rapidly transport paramedics and other first responders to the scene, carry equipment for administering emergency care, and transport patients to hospital or other definitive care. Most ambulances use a design based on vans or pickup trucks. Others take the form of motorcycles, cars, buses, aircraft, and boats. Generally, vehicles count as an ambulance if they can transport patients. However, it varies by jurisdiction as to whether a non-emergency patient transport vehicle is counted as an ambulance. These vehicles are not usually equipped with life support equipment, and are usually crewed by staff with fewer qualifications than the crew of emergency ambulances. Conversely, EMS agencies may also have emergency response vehicles that cannot transport patients. These are known by names such as non-transporting EMS vehicles, fly cars, or response vehicles. The term ambulance comes from the Latin word ambulare, as meaning to walk or move about, which is a reference to early medical care where patients were moved by lifting or wheeling. The word originally meant a moving hospital, which follows an army in its movements. Ambulances were first used for emergency transport in 1487 by the Spanish forces during the siege of Malaga by the Catholic monarchs against the Emirate of Granada. During the American Civil War, vehicles for conveying the wounded off the field of battle were called ambulance wagons. Field hospitals were still called ambulances during the Franco-Prussian War of 1870 and in the Serbo-Turkish War of 1876, even though the wagons were first referred to as ambulances about 1854. During the Crimean War, the history of the ambulance begins in ancient times, with the use of carts to transport incurable patients by force. Ambulances were first used for emergency transport in 1487 by the Spanish, and civilian variants were put into operation during the 1830s. Advances in technology throughout the 19th and 20th centuries led to the modern self-powered ambulances. Ambulances can be grouped into types depending on whether or not they transport patients, and under what conditions. In some cases, ambulances may fulfill more than one function, such as combining emergency ambulance care with patient transport. In the US, there are 4 types of ambulances. There are Type 1, Type 2, Type 3, and Type 4. Type 1 is based upon a heavy truck chassis with a custom rear compartment that is often referred to as a box. Type 1 ambulances are primarily used for advanced life support and transfer of patients, but it is not uncommon to find them used for advanced life support and rescue. Type 3 is a van chassis but with a custom-made rear compartment and has the same uses as Type 1 ambulances. Type 4 is for smaller ad hoc patient transfer that use smaller utility vehicles in which passenger vehicles and trucks would have difficulty in traversing, such as large industrial complexes, commercial venues, and special events with large crowds. They generally do not fall under federal regulations. Ambulances can be based on many types of vehicle, although emergency and disaster conditions may lead to other vehicles serving as makeshift ambulances. Ambulance in Switzerland. New York City Fire Department, a van-bodied ambulance built for the Abu Dhabi National Ambulance or the A4 Avant Fly car in Germany. A paramedic bike in London. In large congested cities, paramedics may travel by bicycle, such as this one of the London Ambulance Service and Air Ambulance in Austria and Air Ambulance in Australia. A water ambulance in the Scilly Isles. Norwegian boat ambulance operating on the coast of Helgoland. A Russian hospital train and Avtoris Shaman ATV. Russian military ambulance. Ambulance bus. Ambulance design must take into account local conditions and infrastructure. Maintained roads are necessary for road-going ambulances to arrive on scene and then transport the patient to a hospital. Though in rugged areas 4-wheel drive or all-terrain vehicles can be used. Fuel must be available and service facilities are necessary to maintain the vehicle. Methods of summoning and dispatching ambulances usually rely on electronic equipment, which itself often relies on an intact power grid. Similarly, modern ambulances are equipped with two-way radios or cellular telephones to enable them to contact hospitals, either to notify the appropriate hospital of the ambulance's pending arrival, or, in cases where physicians do not form part of the ambulance's crew, to confer with a physician for medical oversight. Ambulances often have two manufacturers. The first is frequently a manufacturer of light or ME,